Do you like scary movies?
What's in the box?
I see dead people.
I'm gonna die out here.
Careful, Spot.
What are you waiting for, huh?
Why does that look so familiar?
Carnage candy. Your core audience just expects it.
Barbie, eat your heart out.
It works. Hang on. It's me.
Oh, it's only Kara. Thank God.
I did
Well,
it.
now it's revealed.
Spoilers for
He's the second killer.
7, 8, whatever it's going to be next. But welcome, David Weiner. Is that pronounced correctly?
Weiner, all good.
Yes, Weiner, of course. So welcome. We're here to discuss your. How many documentaries have you done now? I've lost count of those. As many.
I have to think about it, which is a good thing. So this will be the fifth In Search of Darkness documentary that I'm currently in production on, and I also did In Search of Tomorrow. And I suppose if you want to count on maybe a half finger, I've executive produced Aliens Expanded, and The Thing Expanded, and I was a producer on In Search of the Last Action Heroes as well.
Excellent.
All Creator BC, all in the from the mastermind himself, CEO Robin Block.
Excellent. Yes. Now, obviously, these things are easy to do. You can knock them off in like a weekend, and that's why you do so many.
That's right. That's why I do it really quickly, and then I just drink my martini in a hammock for probably about 10 and a half months, and then I release the film.
Exactly. So this is the next one, which is 95 to 99.
Yes.
Splitting them up. Because why?
Because why? Because why is this the next one? Well, so for those the uninitiated, the In Search of, I'm sure there's at least one person scratching his head saying they know what they're talking about, but I don't.
Yeah.
So the In Search of Darkness series is a series of long form documentaries. They tackle movies and some TV as well in the 80s, and now we're doing the 90s. The 80s was only movies, but we moved to add some television to the 90s. But we did part 1, part 2, part 3, a trilogy. That's what we're, it's one of the options as you go through these. Sorry, I'm mesmerized by our rotating slideshow. But so they're long form documentaries where I get the icons of the industry who made these movies, whether they're in front of the camera or behind the camera or experts, on the subject. It's a great celebration of the era. And what's different about the 90s is we decided to divide it into one decade into 2 parts. So I already did 90 to 94, and that's out. That came out at the end of last year. And now we are steeped in production on 95 to 99, but we have just started our pre-order sale. That goes on to June 9th at midnight. You go to 90shorrordoc.com. You'll see this site that you're looking at, and you'll see all the cool stuff and swag you can get. You get I'll do the big spiel later, but you get your name in the credits. There's all sorts of cool swag that you get. It's a collector's edition. You can see right there. You get a quality Blu-ray, but most importantly, you kind of get to be a part of horror history by supporting an indie film, an indie documentary, and getting it over the line and saying that you were part of this process and part of horror history in making this movie as well. So we could dive in and talk all about it, but that's sort of the nutshell. And these are all super long documentaries. We call them long form. The first one was over 4 hours, and then they just creeped up to the point where we're at 6 hours now, if you include the end credits. The reason why is the structure demands it, because we go year by year. within each year, we curate, cherry pick anywhere between 10, 12, 15 movies and talk about them. But then in between, there are larger context chapters about, the special effects or the music or the heroes, the villains, the zeitgeist of the era. And it literally, by the mathematics of it all, if you want to include a whole decade, it gets very long. But
It does.
because these are crowdfunded, people say, I love it, more, tap it into my veins, more, longer, longer. So
Yeah.
who am I to say no?
Exactly. Because we'll just keep going. Yeah, because there's so much.
And all this stuff, just because we're scrolling through all this stuff, we are in production, as I said, on In Search of Darkness 95 to 99. But if you missed the first half, 90 to 94, you can get that either by itself as a Blu-ray, or you could double up, where you get a slipcase with both 90s movies. So you have the whole 90s decade there. If you missed the 80s trilogy, you could get that as well in a beautiful slipcase. And if you're not like Gareth and you have no room for your physical, then you could get digitally the movies, or you can get a digital bundle. But either way you slice it, you get your name in the credits, and you're helping support indie filmmakers and people who put their blood, sweat, and tears. Great team that we all put this together.
Yeah, it's always quality, always great people that you chat to as well. And so you've got until June 9th to reserve the Blu-ray and the extras.
Correct.
And then you get it estimated for Christmas. There you go, lovely Christmas present.
Yeah, it's estimated Christmas. Essentially, you'll get in December. You'll get the digital version of the movie as you are waiting, because what happens is we have to make and manufacture and distribute the Blu-ray, and these are I can't even tell you how long this next one will be, but it will be 5 to 6 hours long. It's going to be just like the others, and so. It takes lots of time to QA it, get it right, make sure everything is in its right place, and it's the most quality product. Then when you get it on Blu-ray, you can't just say, all right, cool, we're good. No, you got to check that too and make sure everything is looking great and all the functionalities there, and start working on the special features. There's all sorts of fun stuff that's part of this process. So all we ask is a little patience, and you'll get your toy.
Well, exactly. They're certainly worth waiting for. Because I saw the last one. When did that come out?
1994. We had our final sale last October. You were able to see it, I think, the last day of November. Yeah. And everyone got their Blu-rays, I think, in, I do not recall, January or February. It's across the world. It really is. So yeah. It's different. It's a little bit different for everyone, and sometimes because it ships from the United States, sometimes it takes a little longer to get where it's going. Because those carrier pigeons, they can only carry so many Blu-rays on their back.
Or use a swallow or
African or European.
There we go. He knows the references. There we go.
They already have their coconuts. I don't know how they could bring the Blu-rays too.
But yeah, excellent. So 95 to 99. Nothing remarkable really happened in horror in that time, did it?
I don't think so. I think if you saw the trailer, if you recognize something, maybe, I don't know. There was some. I saw a vision of Ghostface at the beginning of our live stream here.
Yeah,
so
he was there.
Maybe something happened to do with Ghostface at that point.
Yes.
I could talk about it if you want, or we could, I'm happy to be flippant about it too. There's a lot of. How about this? The 90s is quite the decade, because in the wake of the 80s, which really gets all the attention, the 90s comes along, and a big thing in terms of thematically, what I wanted to tackle for 90 to 94 was horror collectively in terms of movies and television, just trying to find its footing after the 80s, because it was still a bit of the redheaded stepchild as far as Hollywood was concerned. Half the movies that arguably could have a foot in horror, they'd label it a thriller because they thought more people would see it in the theaters. So you'd have a Silence of the Lambs. They wouldn't call that a thriller, but if you're going for a thriller on with the family, and then you're like, wait, he's sewing a suit out of skin. We're in trouble here. So, but what happened was, as the decade was progressing and it was trying to find its footing, great films were being made at the studio level, on the independent level, straight to video, shot on video. There's a smorgasbord of all sorts of amazing creativity. But I think collectively, a lot of people who really, really adore the 80s and maybe are a little more casual when it comes to the 90s, I'm speaking for just a faction of people, they kind of memory hold this whole idea of anything good in the 90s because they think, well, nothing came, this is called, hypothetical what they are thinking, but then a lot of people have said this. Well, I don't know. I can't think of what happened other than Scream, and God, there was a lot of bad CGI. There was nothing good, But you listen. You put the focus your lenses a little bit. There's a huge amount of stuff. Everyone from Wes Craven is really honing his meta-fueled filmmaking edge. Starting with People Under the Stairs, the socio-political elements that he's taking on there, to Wes Craven's New Nightmare, reinventing Freddy and getting super duper meta. So by the time we get to the second half, people are starting to pick up on the fact that horror audiences are incredibly savvy and they're more sophisticated now, and they understand the tropes and they think it's cliche. So you got to tweak them to make it entertaining and interesting and do the unexpected. And films were picking up on that. Kevin Williamson picked up on that. He made this amazing script for Scream, which they did not expect to be a very big movie, but they thought this will be pretty cool. It was a small production, believe it or not. And of course, that just was a phenomenal hit. And that changed the course of so many other films during the second half of the decade. But that, I'll keep on going until you interrupt me. Feel free to interrupt me.
I'm enjoying this.
but Scream sure steals the spotlight. But there are so many other amazing films. There are also so many subgenres. There's like action horror. There's like man versus nature horror. Like action horror is like, Mummy or Deep Rising or End of Days. You've got these. I love these man versus nature movies that kind of just popped up. If not Mosquito, you've got Anaconda. You've got Lake Placid. You've got Bats with Lou Diamond Phillips. And then you have all these movies that they're not poking fun necessarily at themselves so much, but they are trying to rip the rug out from under you and your expectations. So whether it's Seven, and I'm not going to spoil any endings, but if you think about the endings of all these movies I mentioned, whether it's Seven or From Dusk Till Dawn or The Sixth Sense or the Blair Witch Project, all these things are leading to things you think it's going to go one way and it becomes something else entirely. And I think and more horror heroes of old and new are still hanging out. Michael Myers kind of gets a new shot in the arm. He's sort of petering out in Halloween 6, but then coming back strong in Halloween H2O with the retconning and bringing back Jamie Lee Curtis, taking a cue, kind of, sort of, even though it's a very different movie from, No Nightmare, taking an 80s icon and revisiting and redoing. But others, Chucky the same way, Bride of Chucky, super meta film, totally, having a sense of humor about itself, but making it that much more interesting, by adding Tiffany and not taking itself very seriously, having a Hong Kong director, Ronnie Yu, directing it. I mean, there's here I am just talking. There's so much to talk about. I'll add one more thing before I go, in terms of like when people were sort of, all the Scream and The Faculty, and I Know What You Did Last Summer, and Disturbing Behavior, and The Craft, and all these teen-driven movies that were all part of this sort of wave and phenomenon in the Scream era. You also had this sort of sneaking in of J horror, and I think the pendulum was swinging because people were like, well, this is what Hollywood is feeding me. And if I'm going to reject Hollywood, what else is out there? Wait, someone told me about this movie. It's a slow burn about haunted videotape. Are you kidding me? Oh my God, I got to see that, And, Ring starts creeping in. So, what went on during that decade? I think I touched on it and I still left a lot on the table.
Yes. Well, my story is because I wasn't 18 until 91, so I couldn't see the films in the cinema until then because of the strict British laws. But then I wasn't really a fan of horror until like very late 80s because I was a lightweight and scared of the stuff when I watched it really young. So it put me right off the genre. So it wasn't until the 90s I started watching stuff. So I could only get what was coming out then. So it was like Friday 8. And then,
right. Jason Takes Manhattan.
Because I saw, was it Elm Street 6 in the cinema in 3D and stuff like that.
Freddy's dead. Spoiler alert in the title.
Until New Nightmare. But I saw Scream came out. What was it? 96 in America.
Yes.
But I think it was 97, mid 97 in the UK. So even though it had been out in almost a year, I didn't know anything about it, and I went in blind and thoroughly enjoyed it, of course. And then the same thing happened with Scream 2. By the time it came out, Scream 1 was coming out here. Scream 2 was already coming out in America. So, but then by Scream 3, it was about the same time.
I'm envious of you because Scream caught on real quick in terms of the groundswell of you got to see this, this is great. And you know how it is when movies get overhyped. And people start spoiling things. At least you had the internet, but it wasn't like social media in your pocket where you just say, oh, what's the news? Oh, they just revealed the ending. We did not have that back then. So there were still some surprises left. So
I
think that's great for you.
It was there was every week, the local newspaper had a small what's on in the cinema. So there was nothing about the film. It was just like Wes Craven's Scream horror film. That was there. That was the description. And then, I'll see that. I love a bit of Wes.
Yeah.
And then, of course, but then, of course, we have it to blame for Photoshop.
Yeah, well, yes. That's I think you bring
the
up.
original is just that.
I think let's look over your shoulder. It's pretty much that was the trend. Where it was essentially they evolved from this amazing poster art, painted poster art, to essentially just a pretty mundane, the stars' heads in some sort of atmospheric sort of something. So when you have, there you go. What's the one in the very front on your left hand there that you just?
Was it Dust Till Dawn?
Yeah, Dust Till Dawn. At least that's a little more creative.
Yeah, that's from Graham Humphreys who did some of the artwork.
There you go. It's a little more action packed there. But if you look at some of the posters like Event Horizon, where let's look at Event Horizon. Hang on, oh, he's going to run and get it. But Event Horizon was original art where you see. I'll describe it and then you'll do the show and tell. There. Well, you know what? There's one. The British one has their faces. The American poster originally, before the video release, had only the ship and Neptune there, and it's pretty intense. I think the tagline was "Infinite Space, Infinite Terror." I mean, that was a wall-worthy poster. Another fun one is bats of all things.
I don't have bats. I love bats.
Bats is a great one. You could put bats in terms of the poster art. You could put bats next to Stephen King's Sleepwalkers.
Sleepwalkers, yes.
And that would be an amazing, right next to each other, amazing art that evokes a feeling and an atmosphere versus a bunch of star faces to get you in the theater. So,
well, some like American Werewolf in Paris doesn't really.
That's at least something.
That's
at least something.
it's blurry, but yeah.
At least the werewolf looks realer on the art than it did in the movie. Sorry, I didn't.
They spoiled it on the back of the poster.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
But yeah, and then of course that's
Yeah,
a bit of effort.
Sorry, I know I'm supposed to comment on these. And I will. I can.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
they're already revealing, that the bad guy has the hook. Spoiler alert! It's the Gorton's fisherman.
Ben's son, you say?
But it really kind of is if anything, the scary movie poster of your left shoulder is a little more fun because it sort of is indicative of what you're in for versus just, you're at least seeing the fear of the audience, of the stars who are in the movie with a little bit of the satire that you're in for. So that's a little more fun. But yeah, I don't know. It's really sad, and it's just an era where it just wasn't, if anything, looking more over your shoulders, I would say the craft one is pretty good.
Yeah.
And I would say the Blair Witch one is pretty good.
I got a little one of them.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, yeah, I'm doing a watch party of this in a woods at night, so that should be fun.
Mm-hmm. as long as you have you give everyone a bag of their Dramamine pills, it'll be a great time.
But yeah, some made an effort. The Frighteners.
Yeah, Frighteners is even more. That's ballsy when you have Michael J. Fox as your lead, and you don't put Michael J. Fox on the poster.
Yeah.
But I think there was Michael J. Fox, if you think about it, was running around with a very short haircut. He did not look like Marty McFly.
No.
Which is, everyone wants to see the next Marty McFly in a horror semi, what is it? Oh, it's Marty McFly in Ghostbusters? Oh, wait, it's not that at all, really. But that's kind of how they wanted to try and sell it. But it's kind of like, infamous haircuts that did not go over well, going back to Kevin Costner doing the Steve McQueen haircut for The Bodyguard, or Harrison Ford, Decker's haircut. I think we're so used to that now, it's no big deal. But I remember coming across to that, thinking like, wow, he's like, that's not Han Solo, and that's not Jones. That's a weird haircut. Yeah. So they kind of did the same thing with Michael J. Fox for the Frighteners, to just kind of make him feel like a different character. And part of it's a weird thing as a moviegoer when you have a favorite star and you spend a good amount of time just adapting to their new look.
Well, yeah, because in the outtakes, he's like calling people Doc, isn't he? Like, we got to get out of here, Doc, and stuff like that.
Yeah, he slips intentionally or unintentionally a couple times.
But yeah, not even Wes Craven was immune in the 90s with the
vampire. That's right. Vampire in Brooklyn also being a very, very, very interesting one in that the irony, I think, there is the behind the scenes story, the nutshell, not to go too deep into it, is that I think Wes Craven wanted to bring out a little more of the comedy, and Eddie Murphy wanted to bring a little more seriousness to his character, yet he still comes across as, battling between Eddie Murphy funny man and Eddie Murphy scary vampire actor. So, that's a movie that definitely kind of has a bit of an identity crisis, especially for the audience trying to wonder, with their expectations. But any major funny man or funny woman who is known out and out for comedy, when they try and get serious, it's a major adjustment for audiences, and sometimes they swallow that Kool-Aid, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, because he did the same with Metro as well. That was supposed to be serious, but then it ended up like spoofing itself and trying to be Beverly Hills Cop again. But yeah, you weren't wrong about something like monster movies when you got.
Oh yeah. Mimic, Deep Rising, The Relic, Deep Blue Sea. Exactly, very good. Some of those are giant monster animals, and others are actual genuine monsters. But Relic, I think, is an interesting one. I think that deserves a revisit with a lot of people. Peter Hyams' film.
Yeah.
you know, what is it? The Field Museum in Chicago as haunted house.
Yes, it was very good.
Yeah,
I
it's
enjoyed it
it's
in the
it's a,
cinema.
it's a fun one. You know, Peter Hyams can do no wrong, even if his film doesn't go over extremely well. He's a journeyman director. He's very competent. He followed that one up, I believe. I'm not sure if it's right after, but you know, End of Days was the last film he came
Yeah.
out with Arnold
Time Cop,
Schwarzenegger.
Sudden Death as
Yep,
well
yep,
on the
yep.
way.
Time Cop is so great. But well, since we're talking Peter Hyams, I will always stand by Outland is my
Yes.
all-time favorite Peter Hyams movie, which is a kind of a cousin to the Alien universe in production design, even though there's no
Oh
actual aliens in there.
yeah, that's true. So yeah, I mentioned 7 earlier. We haven't had the sequel 8 yet, but
Yeah, well, Jennifer ate, and people didn't understand it. You know, they're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't get this franchise. They had the Sixth Sense, then they had 7, then they had Jennifer 8, and I think
9 was an animation or something, I believe.
yeah. 9 was anime,
And
exactly. Elijah Wood, you couldn't even see him in 9.
they're all prequels
Was
to
there
10 with
was
Bo
there
Derek.
was there a 5? I think the Jackson 5 was on tour at the time or something.
There you go. But then we also got sequels, I suppose, like Carrie 2 was a thing,
Mhm.
straight to video, I think, in the UK, as some of these went.
The Rage Carrie 2, or as Emily Burgle, who plays the lead in The Rage Carrie 2, she likes to call it Le Rage Carrie Part 2.
Oh, that makes sense. That's
But
better.
it's actually really, really good. I think that movie got sort of a bad rap, as the sequel to Carrie, where it just didn't kind of look like a Carrie movie. But it's a great teen, sexual politics, high school movie where the lead is not a wallflower. She's just like a goth, character who just wants to keep to herself.
Yeah.
She's just sort of the outcast and the other, but she's a pretty normal character. And when she gets screwed over, I don't think I'm spoiling anything. She then, guess what? The telekinetics and the comeuppance comes in. But if you watch that, Amy Irving is in it. That ties the two movies together, and it's kind of cool the way they do it.
Yeah, it does say it's Amy Irving from Carrie on the back. So, she's supposed to be the same character in this, isn't she?
Yes. Sue Snell.
That's it. It's from the Kat Shear director who did was it Stripped to Kill 1 and 2? I think.
Well, she was a Corman director, but she kind of became noticed by Hollywood when she did Poison Ivy with Drew Barrymore, and that kind of was sort of Drew Barrymore's first high-profile movie where she was no longer the cute kid, or the one with pyrokinesis, but she was like a woman and becoming a young woman, and I think a lot of people had very mixed feelings about growing up with her and then seeing her in a role like that. But it's Poison Ivy is a great film, and Kat Shea jumped in to replace a different director for Carrie 2. But I still think that's if anyone is liked Carrie but is not looking for the exact same thing, they'll find a lot of great stuff to chew on in this movie.
Yeah. Or just watch The Fury.
Yeah. The Fury. Yes, exactly. The Fury is. I'm sure you've seen The Fury. Fury is an interesting movie, because it's like a slow burn. Pun unintended, but I mean, it's like one of these things where there's all sorts of it's not the sum of its parts, but then you get to this insane finale where you feel like, well, this is what we've been building up to. Wow, what a choice. It's I don't know. I'll say no more because I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't seen it, but it's got a great cast.
Yeah, and then even superhero films got in on the act.
That's right. Another sort of subgenre between Blade and Spawn. Blade being, Wesley Snipes kicking ass and taking names as a daywalker, half vampire. But it's action packed, and of course, other than Howard the Duck, he's the first serious Marvel hero to hit the screen. Fun fact that I'm sure that all the nerds know, but some people might not know that. And of course, after making his American debut with Mimic, Guillermo del Toro got to do Blade 2, and Blade 2 is phenomenal, really good. That's just outside of, that's in the 2000.
Of course it is. That's why I didn't make it up.
99, but it's really good.
Like, I used to know dates very well, but yeah, now they all merged together as pre-millennium. So yeah, of course, then Species 2. The
Species
DNA.
movies, the Sill, I think my biggest draw, other than the fact that Natasha Henstridge was extremely hot and perfect, was the fact that the creature design was designed by H.R. Giger, and boy, that's kind of one of those names where it doesn't matter what they do. If they design the creature, you're there for it. But that was, I think the first one is Roger Donaldson directed this, right? He's another one of those like journeyman action directors, always reliable, No Way Out and stuff like that. That's a great cast. That's all kind of,
it's weird cast for such a film like that.
Great cast. That's essentially, like all these sort of star-studded casts in a horror or a horror action movie. Yeah, that goes in the horror action category, really. But yeah, they're like the buffet lined up for the kills.
Because I should have dusted all, but yeah, there's I think other two sequels outside.
Yeah, they were straight to video sequels, like Texas Blood Money and those. But they were really. Dusk Till Dawn is if I had to pick a small handful of films that to me really were, not that scream spotlight, I would just say that's one of the strongest movies of that decade, because that really encapsulates what the 90s was about. Because the 90s was about Quentin Tarantino taking over. Reservoir Dogs, everyone got the attention. Pulp Fiction, everyone wanted to make a movie like Pulp Fiction, and everyone wanted a piece of Tarantino, and everyone wanted to make a movie like Tarantino. So what does Tarantino do? He does a heist movie with George Clooney, the hottest actor from ER, now doing movies before Batman, and they pull the rug out of you when they end up, I don't know. Who am I spoiling this for? But chaos ensues when they take some hostages and then stop in the wrong place. But I think it's an amazing movie because Robert Rodriguez really was making a name for himself after donating his blood for the budget for El Mariachi, which was a phenomenal film for an indie film that was only made, I think, I don't know, what's the $7,000 or something like that.
Ridiculous, wasn't it?
And boy, talk about the ultimate Hollywood calling card. And this is at a time when Hollywood was absolutely valuing indie filmmakers and going to the Sundance Film Festival and all the other film festivals to try and pluck the best talent, like scouts looking for rookie baseball players. And so these two unite, and they do From Dusk Till Dawn, and it is a kick-ass movie start to finish.
Yeah, I think that's only it doesn't really say on it how long it is. Only 90 something 104 minutes. So
it moves fast. It moves very fast. And it's kind of like if you look at Sinners today, I think there are still people, Sinners has a serious nod of the hat to From Dusk Till Dawn's format and concept. And I think it's really great when there are people who, whatever they were watching and they missed the trailer, or they did not know what this was about and they thought it was the Tarantino Clooney heist movie. Boy, were they in for a surprise when they entered the doors of the Titty Twister.
Yes, I did the address. What is it? Do you know it?
Say again?
The address of the Titty Twister. Do you have it?
South of the border. South of the border. I can't say I've been there because I would not have returned.
Not a biker or a trucker. Some that I think this is pre-2000. Cherry Falls. That one is a little more. That's one I'm aware of, but I can't talk about it because that one's on a big Swiss cheese hole. On my my viewing list. It's on my queue. But it's American Pie meets Scream.
Yes, that's what. Well, here I think you're picking out something that's important where you're talking about it's American Pie meets Scream because what people want to do, regardless of what their film is they want to market it in a as familiar way as possible. And so marketing all of these movies was an incredibly huge and extremely important task for all these studios and indies. I'm gonna go back to the marketing of Blair Witch. The reason why Blair Witch was the success it was because of the marketing campaign of creating this aura and mystique that this was a genuine, real found footage film. And that was a term that we weren't using as a common term that we all know what that means now. It was essentially started, if not coined, when that movie came out. But before that hit the theaters, going back to Sundance, it played at Sundance, and everyone was just raving about this movie, saying, "You've got to see this movie." These two filmmakers found this footage of these three people who were lost in the woods, never to be seen again. They cobbled it together. This is the most stunning tale I've ever seen ever in my entire life. And everyone bought that, market, hook, line, and sinker, including me, you know?
Yeah.
So you gotta credit the marketing. And marketing, whether it's, especially if it's Roger Corman, we mentioned earlier, Charlie Band, all they wanted to do was create the most amazing poster. Whether or not you actually see what is on the poster in the film, it might happen,
Yes.
Charlie Band with Full Moon Entertainment, especially when he was in Empire in the 80s, and then it became Full Moon Entertainment in the 90s, infamously would sell movies based on concept art and no movie. And then he would go to like Stuart Gordon, or he'd go to, his motley crew of amazing, resourceful with low budget directors, and say, so like dolls, for example, you've got this amazing poster with this doll holding eyeballs, and basically he's just like, to Stuart Gordon, he's like, yeah, I want you to make this movie, let's figure out what it is. Whatever you do, you have to at least one scene where a doll is holding eyeballs, otherwise we can't justify the poster. Same thing with subspecies. All the little these little minion subspecies creatures holding a fair maiden. And Ted Nicolau is like, this is great, but I really want to do a vampire movie in Romania. Do we have to have the subspecies? And of course, Charlie Band is, of course we have to do the fucking subspecies. That's the fucking poster.
Yes. And how many sequels did that one get? I lost count.
I think it's still going. Literally.
Probably making one in Romania as we speak. But then there was Jamie Lee Curtis's big comeback in the 90s after July's. Of course, talking about Virus.
Virus, exactly. Yeah. Virus is an interesting one because it's something where Jamie Lee Curtis, perhaps after doing Halloween, I call it H2O. Some people call it H20.
Yeah, what is it?
Well, it's H20, 20 years later.
Yeah.
But everyone started calling it Halloween H2O when it was coming out. So it's like Halloween Water is the title. But, she had very effectively and efficiently escaped being the quote unquote scream queen that she didn't want to be labeled, and got away from horror movies and became a legit actor. And then I think, when the paycheck is rich enough, I suppose, to lure her back, my theory is she's just like, well, maybe I could dabble in a little more horror because I'm seen not only as the horror person, so I could do other things. But if it's a good script, I'll deign to do that. That's where I think Virus comes along.
Yeah, I don't mind it. It's silly fun.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, but and you got a robot. What's his name? Bless him, he's no longer with us. Where is he? Donald Sutherland, bless him.
Yes, Donald Sutherland, exactly. Yes.
But yeah.
Well, listen, you said the first Friday the 13th was Jason Takes Manhattan, subtitled Jason Takes a Boat Ride, very long boat ride, most of the movie until he gets to Manhattan for a couple minutes.
Yeah,
that's the subtitle, but they shortened it. Yeah.
Yes.
So some of these movies that take place on a boat, it's as much as budget as anything
Yeah.
else, but also you can get a lot of dramatic tension when people are trapped in a remote
Yeah.
space with only their resources. I mean, Deep Rising, another boat movie, is it's a bigger boat, but it's a boat nonetheless where you're trapped. It's a bigger haunted house movie. Yeah,
Terrible.
Deep Rising is a super fun movie.
It is.
I think the title is its downfall because it's a very generic title. I always felt like it was when it first came out. And then I discovered it on my own when someone said, well, not on my own. So I kind of passed on it because of that title. And then someone told me, no, this is like a really entertaining movie. You got to check it out. Trust me. And it's a rip roaring time. And it's a fun and funny movie. And Treat Williams and his band of mercenary characters, they steal the show. It's really fun. So yeah, check that one out.
Even set up a sequel, but we never got. But yeah, so
if I had a nickel for every sequel, that never came to happen. If I had money,
well, exactly.
or if I had money for at the end of Spy Who Loved Me, James Bond will return in For Your Eyes Only.
Yeah.
And then Moonraker snuck in there. I'd if I was a betting man, then I would have made some money.
How much? Right. So we got Halloween 78, Halloween 98. Then we've had Halloween 2018 with Jamie Lee Curtis. Is she up for 2038, do you think?
She maybe. And don't forget, or maybe intentionally forget Halloween Resurrection. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think you're better off.
Yeah, there was some.
Well, let me ask you the question, like Halloween 6, what are your thoughts on, do you just love it because it's a franchise and do you go with it? And, despite its flaws, are you like, awesome, it's Michael Myers doing his thing again. And, oh, there's a young Paul Rudd that I didn't know was going to be a young Paul Rudd,
Oh, yeah.
What's your take on by the time you get to
I probably saw the first 2, 3 on telly. And I don't know if I probably would have missed 4 because the time it came out. And I think I saw like 5 and 6 around the early 90s as well in the video shop. So those are the ones I would. So I remember renting 5 and 6 a lot. Friday the 13th, 8 and 9 a lot. So because 9 was the only one we had in the 90s. So
wait, which one? Sorry,
Friday the Jason Goes to Hell.
Oh, right. I never call it 9, so you stumped me there for a minute.
I abbreviated it. Yeah, they stopped putting numbers on to confuse me, didn't they?
Jason Goes to Hell is a very meta film as well. That's like full of Easter eggs. I mean, to the point where it's like in your face for horror fans. Adam Marcus, I think, did an admirable job with it's a hotly contested Jason installment, but I think he did an admirable job as a really young director when Sean S. Cunningham said, yeah, you can make the next movie, just lose his mask, or he dropped an F-bomb, lose the effing mask, but if you watch that film, look for the crate from Creepshow. Look for the jungle gym where all the birds were on from The Birds. In your face, part of the plot is the Necronomicon from Evil
Jason's
Dead.
Officially a Deadite, isn't he?
Right. So if anything, and of course it sets up Jason's versus Freddy, or Freddy versus Jason. So kudos to that movie for trying to do something different, for creatively, when he was told he can't use the mask, you still have full-on Jason in the opening sequence, and then every time you see him in the mirror, it's Jason with the mask. But in his defense, and if it's not for you, it's not your cup of tea, you can go to the other movies, all 8 of them, where the co-eds are being picked off one by one. This one, at least, he's kind of going a little bit like The Hidden, with this sort of demonic entity going from body to body switching, and at least it's something different.
Yeah, and then
I think it plays sorry, it plays better now than it did then. I think it
Yeah.
took a while for people to either come around, but sometimes when it's got a bit of a stigma to
It
it,
was a dry patch.
make your decision. Yeah.
But yes, The Fallen ripped it off, of course, with Denzel and
Denzel, I love when Denzel, because it's a extremely rare occasion when Denzel steps into supernatural territory.
totally.
It's good.
Heart conditions.
That's another movie too that's really kind of in the wake of Seven. Seven came out, and even if the storyline was entirely different, the look and the feel of a lot of these thrillers and procedurals and other supernatural things, serial killer movies, it was almost like an edict for like the next 5 years that he's like, study Fincher's Seven and make it like that, but make the movie different.
Yeah. You ever seen Citizen X? It's like a BBC movie about the Russian serial killer that they couldn't catch for like 30 years. And
I know of it, but I've never seen it.
okay, I'll throw that out. But
But
yeah,
it's a true story, right?
Yeah.
Based on a true story. Yeah.
yeah. And then they used his deductions and for stuff like by the time Silence of the Lambs came out, they were using his theories and stuff in the FBI training and stuff like that. How he caught this guy. But yeah, it's good because I think the Seven writer went on to do Sleepy Hollow. I think.
Yes, Andrew Kevin Walker. He did Sleepy Hollow. He also did Stir of Echoes.
That's it. I was looking at it. David Cope was it directed.
Yeah. Sleepy Hollow. Boy, that's a great one. That's that is Tim Burton's throwback to Hammer Horror. I remember when I saw that, I didn't know what to expect because I grew up watching the Wonderful World of Disney Ichabod and Mr. Toad version of Sleepy Hollow, that scared the crap out of me as a kid. I loved it, so I was obsessed with it, and I actually grew up kind of near the real town of Sleepy Hollow, which is right by Tarrytown, New York, in upstate New York, and so. Anyway, I was very steeped in that lore, and I loved that so much. And so when Tim Burton came along, my first thought was Johnny Depp is Ichabod Crane. He's not ugly enough, No. But he turned him into a very Johnny Depp / Tim Burton style character that was fun and tepid and weird yet heroic. And it's such a great film, and Christopher Walken, I didn't even know before I saw it. I didn't know what to make of him as the Headless Horseman. I'm like, really? The Headless Horseman has no head, but if he does, he's going to talk like Christopher Walken.
That would have been interesting.
The sharp teeth and so well done, done. And if you want to see Martin Landau lose his head's going to roll.
Yeah, pretty much everyone, isn't it? Yeah. One more tape, and then.
Stigmata. Yeah, they were sort of the tail end of the 90s. I think as we were heading towards the millennium and Y2K, there was a technical aspect of when the clocks turn to midnight on the year 2000, Y2K, every computer is going to stop and the planes are going to fall out of the sky and it's going to be Armageddon and chaos. There was one thought process, train of thought, but the other one was kind of like a little more culty, a little more rapture, a little more religious Armageddon in the traditional name, sense of Armageddon. And a lot of people were thinking that something like that was going to go down. And so you got more sort of, as we're counting down to 2000, more kind of fundamental religious movies like Stigmata,
Yeah, because it's got Gabriel Byrne from End of Days as well.
So, Gabriel Byrne doing double duty as a good and bad priest, or
Elm Street 3's Patricia.
Well, he's not a bad priest. He's even more. He's worse in End of Days.
He's very naughty, right? Right. So we'll go back, finish up on just a quick plug. So yes, the link's in the description, it's in the chat, it's everywhere, it's on the community tabs. So yes.
Yeah, in Search of Darkness 95.99, go to 90shorrordoc.com. You don't have to go to !SCA_Refi.
That's an easy link.
PWWWID.
If you memorize it.
Yes, I mean you can if you want, but if you like memorize pi for a living, then by all means. But yeah, go to 90shorrordoc.com between now and June 9th. Check out that amazing trailer. What you saw at the beginning of our show was
1 minute of it.
The 1 minute version. We have a 5-minute version that's insane. We have an amazing, talented, and a very small team at Creator VC that puts together all of this artwork, all of these trailers, putting these movies together, doing social media. They all deserve the ultimate shout out because we have an amazing team. And I find when you have a small, intense team, you can get a lot more done than if you have some larger, too many fingers in the pies. And so it's a very creative bunch. If you want to support indie filmmaking and indie documentary filmmaking, and if you're curious to see the other In Search of Darkness movies from 1 to 3, the 80s trilogy or the first half of the 90s, by all means, you can actually get those now. Just go to our socials and the socials are 80s horror doc. But yeah, click on that link tree, and if you want to, click on and download and stream all those movies, the 80s trilogy and 90 to 94, you can do that right this moment. But if you are someone who loves physical copies, like Gareth, you can definitely pre-order now and be part of horror history for your collector's item that you'll have on your shelf proudly. And then maybe one day in the future, Gareth will be doing a podcast where he'll be grabbing all the Creator VC titles and he'll say, all right, say three words about this, 3 words about that, 4 words about that.
Indeed. So the next question, is there going to be a 2000s or is it not worth bothering? Because
I don't know. What would you like? Would you like to see 2000s?
I would think 70s.
Yeah?
My vote.
Okay. Well, listen, for you, anything.
Oh, there you go. So, yeah.
There is. I cannot definitively say, and it's not because I'm being, cagey. It's because we have not fully decided. But we are kind of leaning in one direction versus the other, and it may. I no promises because I don't like. Okay. I like to be a man of my word, so I make no promise I can't keep. But we're probably leaning definitely more towards 70s than we are 2000s. If not, another revisit to the 90s, or who knows, maybe if everyone collectively says you got to start in the 30s and work your way up, or the 50s and work your way up. There's so much amazing horror.
You have to do the 70s, 50s because they're remaking everything from the 50s and the 80s. And
every 20 years, there's pretty much something that's remade, if not every 2 years now.
Yeah, I gotta say, because the trouble with the 70s is not that many people are still with us, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, there still are some people around, but fundamentally, if you weren't, a kid or a teen or in your early 20s, if we did the 70s, it would have to be a lot more experts and famous fans of the era that I think people would love and respect and want to hear what they have to say and talk about their favorites. But, people are still around, like director Philip Kaufman. I'd love to sit him down and talk about Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978, Donald Sutherland again, There's a lot of great movies. Well, get that kid from The Omen. He was little.
Exactly.
Let's get Damien, So, we can still have fun with it. So we'll see.
Yeah. The other one was now that you've got all this technology, the people on your team and all the contacts, do you think you'll ever go back to the 80s, like do 1 year at a time or something like that? Because you could do like 10 hours at 1980 alone, couldn't you? So,
never say never, because it's not like we did every single movie and ran out of movies. We literally did upwards of 14 hours of three trips to the well, and there's still a huge amount left on the floor that we couldn't even get to. And that's my biggest wonderful problem with these movies, is that with these documentaries that I do, is that there's no way that I could tackle everything. Even it seems ridiculous if I do a 4, 5, 6 hour movie and I can't tackle it all. But if you are knowledgeable about that era, you realize that there are just so many titles. And so something's got to give. Can't do every single one. That's kind of why we kept on going back. I never expected, I had hoped we could do more, but I never expected the backers and the fans and the community to say, we loved part 1. Now, where's our Italian horror? Where's, where's our deep cuts? And we listened, And then, but after that, I thought that'll be that, the nails in the coffin. I think that's done with the 80s. And they said, no, we want more. And if anything, I'm very glad that I did In Search of Darkness Part 3, because I think by that time I had really kind of perfected the alchemy of really well-known films, lots of indie films, and lots of straight-to-video / shot-on-video. And people really responded positively to that. So I ported that straight over to 1990 to 1994 and now 95 to 99. That balance, I think, keeps everyone engaged. There's the people who only know the hits. There's the people who only know the deep cuts and say, where are those? And then there's the people in between just saying, feed me. I love it all,
Exactly. Always great fun. So Josh is saying it's payday next week. So he's going to be buying that.
Yay, Josh. All right.
This time, next Friday is payday in most places in the UK.
I think Josh needs to buy some soap to wash off all that blue
himself again. Shane says he loves it. He grew up watching 90 horror thriller films. Yeah, there you go.
Very good. Horror thriller films. Whatever. Call it what you want. Hey, the Dutch film buff.
All the way from the Netherlands. Oh, he watched Wizards of the Lost Kingdom today. He's not very good with it. At least it was nostalgic.
That's the key. Can I talk about that real quick? All these movies is that whether it's Wizards of the Lost Kingdom or whatever you watch, none of these have to be a great film. It's about being entertained. It's being about a sort of a comfort blanket watch. But all these movies, no matter what it is, it's not about either the critical or box office hits or forgotten films. It's about who you were when you first watched it, who you were with when you first watched it, where you were in your life when you first watched it. And it's as much about the nostalgia of what you were doing at the time as much as the film itself. So we could talk about the film and the triumphs and the challenges and how it did. But when you're watching it, so many of us have a direct connection to whatever the film is. It doesn't have to be the most amazing film. It doesn't matter. For me, it's like Humanoids from the Deep. I snuck into, with my friend when his parents weren't around. We were watching that when we shouldn't have, and we were rewarded watching the gore, the violence, and the TNA. And I will always remember that. And I even remember then thinking to myself, Humanoids from the Deep, this is crap. Let's watch it anyway, because it's on. And that to me remains a special experience, not because it's the greatest film ever, but because it really made an impact on me. Okay. There's a movie. There's a song called A New. I think I'm going to get it wrong. I think it's called A New Beginning by a band called Wolfie's Just Fine. You gotta watch that video. It's a great tune, but it's essentially a recreation of this kid who gets to see Friday the 13th part 4 or 5, I think, for the first time ever. Apologies if I got the number wrong, but seeing that when the couple's having sex in the woods, and Jason comes and kills this beautiful girl, so he's obsessed with, oh my God, I get to see nudity for the first time, and he falls in love with her because he's a young burgeoning tween seeing this way too early, and then Jason comes and kills her. And that's what this video is all about, and about kind of becoming a man too early and too soon after seeing something that will forever change your life and you'll never forget. And that's what these movies are all about.
Excellent. I think that's a great way to finish. But I do have one more question. It's a yes/no one. Are you doing Stephen King TV adaptations in this one?
Yeah, I would like to. I don't like to reveal what's in it because I don't like to play, with expectations. I did in 1990 to 1994. But yeah, I'll spoil one big one, definitely. And that's the Stephen King miniseries. Sorry, the Shining miniseries. because I think that's an extremely important one to talk about, because that movie, first of all, it's a TV movie that did really, really well, directed by Mick Garris, who was Stephen King's kind of go-to guy in the 90s after It, which is Tommy Lee Wallace. But Stephen King, I'm sure everyone here knows that Stephen King was not pleased with Stanley Kubrick's version of The Shining, because Shining was a very, very personal story about his own struggles. And so he said, I'm going to take the horse by the reins, and I'm going to write my own TV miniseries and have it done again. And it starred Steven Weber as Jack Torrance. And I'm very proud to have in this In Search of Darkness 95 to 99, while I don't like to reveal too much talent, I do have Mick Garris talking about directing that, and I do have Steven Weber talking about playing Jack Torrance. Super cool. And that's the fun of making these documentaries, is I get some of these people to talk about their experience and looking back in retrospective, yes, I'm losing I'm doing too much talking. Looking back, no, I'm running out of steam, but yeah, looking back in retrospect at these movies and what they were like then and what they meant then and how they age now, and the longevity, the impact, all that kind of stuff.
Excellent. We'll leave it there. So thank you, David. And yes, everyone will be on payday. Will be
thanks for everyone who listened along and for writing in your questions, and I appreciate everyone's support. And I encourage you all, because not a lot of people know about this stuff, these documentaries. So please tell your friends, if you really like this, write about it on social media, spread the word, spread the good word about 90shorrordoc.com and our pre-sale that ends on June 9th. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, plenty of time, but make sure you do it before it's too late. All right. Thank you. We'll end on this, and then David, I'll speak to you in a minute.
All right.
Bye.
Ciao, Constable.
Ciao?
Ciao. That's a familiar Italian expression meaning goodbye.